Welcome to the Grazing Grass Podcast, episode 139.
Keep asking why. Just keep asking why. There's a lot of it. There's just so much advice.
You're listening to the Grazing Grass Podcast, sharing information and stories of grass-based livestock production utilizing regenerative practices. I'm your host, Cal Hardage. You're growing more than grass. You're growing a healthier ecosystem to help your cattle thrive in their environment. You're growing your livelihood by increasing your carrying capacity and reducing your operating costs. You're growing stronger communities and a legacy to last generations. The grazing management decisions you make today impact everything from the soil beneath your feet to the community all around you. That's why the Noble Research Institute created their Essentials of Regenerative Grazing course to teach ranchers like you easy-to-follow techniques to quickly assess your forage production and infrastructure capacity in order to begin grazing more efficiently. Together, they can help you grow not only a healthier operation, but a legacy that lasts. Learn more on their website at noble.org/grazing. It's noble.org/grazing. This week's Grazing Grass Farmer of the Week is Eileen Napier of Ramstead Ranch in Washington. We talk about their journey of going from 2 acres to what they have now going on. Starting at 2 acres, some of us may think, hey, that's a limitation. Eileen found some ways for them to get started with poultry on small acreage. Then they've included sheep, and now on their current ranch, they have sheep, pigs, and cattle. And then they work with some local farmers for the poultry side of it. Very interesting episode to follow their journey. For the overgrazing section, we talk about team management because no longer is it just the founders working on the farm or ranch. It is a team of employees they have to manage, and we talk about how they manage them. For 10 seconds about my farm, I have a black Spanish buck for sale. If anyone's interested, shoot me an email, cal@grazinggrass.com. I'm located in Northeast Oklahoma. So I've had him. Used him last year. I was planning on using him this year. However, he has recently figured out how to get out of my fence. And he is doing that. He was doing it nightly. Not a big deal. He was staying right here on the farm. And I thought, well, he's going to earn himself a vacation from the farm because I don't have time to put him back in. However, he has not gone on his vacation yet. And my neighbor called after dark other night that my buck was about a half mile from the house. And I didn't go get him that day because trying to drive a black buck in the dark is quite difficult. I was able to locate him a following morning and drive him home. I have him in, and I've weaned my buck kids, so now that they are with him, so he's got some company to stay put. But I prefer animals stay in their pastures. He is a very good buck. If you have different fencing than I do, he might work for you. For 10 seconds about the podcast, for Grazing Grass Insiders, we have our first monthly Zoom next Tuesday at 7 p.m. We're going to talk about types of grazing and what kind of grazing you should be doing. And also for Grazing Grass Insiders, today's episode has a bonus segment, and it's about fiber production and use. Very interesting. I find that fascinating. Not something I'll probably ever do, but I do find it really fascinating. Anyway, it's a wonderful episode today, and let's go ahead and talk to Eileen. Eileen, we want to welcome you to the Grazing Grass Podcast. We're excited you're here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Eileen, to get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your operation?
Yeah, I am a co-founder of Ramstead Ranch. Stan Hayes and Gene Hayes are also my partners and co-founders. And we started our ranch. I mean, it was a journey that started back in 2006 on a 2-acre piece of property that was basically a mixed residential area where we had animal rights, where we were able to raise, chickens or have horses and that sort of thing. But our neighbors didn't, and they had manicured lawns, and so did we to begin with. And we decided, hey, we want to start raising our own proteins. We're already doing garden boxes and, keen on having clean vegetables. And we made a go of it with meat chickens to begin with. And it wasn't too long after that, we were doing turkeys and then some sheep. And then it just grew from there. And we transitioned now onto what today is a 240-acre ranch that is, full blown regenerative grazing. And we're grass finishing beef and pasture finishing pigs in the northeast corner of Washington State. And we do direct market sales with all of our meats as well. So that's kind of where we've been and where we are today.
Oh, very good. A lot going on there.
Yes. Yep.
Now, when you all started, you mentioned some garden boxes and stuff. Were you all selling veggies at that time?
No, it all started with, we want to know where our food's coming from. And of course, garden vegetables are amazing and it's fun. And, we kind of had the bent to be homesteaders and just back to the land and learn how to do it ourselves. And not only the growing and the raising, but there was also an interest in sheep. So sheep that grew wool for fiber arts and hand spinning and that sort of thing. So we just really wanted to try it all out.
Did you, when you were growing up, did you imagine this to be your life?
Oh, not at all. So personally, none of us come from agriculture. The three of us individually have come from various backgrounds, and none of us were born into agriculture. We had some exposure. I rode horses when I was young, and I loved pets. I had a rabbit and I had dogs, and I loved being outdoors. It's really more of an interest in being outdoors and being in touch with nature, and then learning in our adult lives the reality of what the food system in America is sort of typically based on, and seeing what that does to our health over time, and going, hey, we can be empowered to do it differently. So I was exposed to permaculture when I was in college. And I went to Colorado State, and there was a student-run vegetable garden, a sustainability group. And so I participated in activities with them and learned a lot that way. But it was farming and ranching and agriculture was really still a pipe dream. It was like, nobody, you can't really get into this unless you were born into it or unless you grew up doing it. And it wasn't until so 2006, we were reading Omnivore's Dilemma. And and then got introduced to Joel Salatin and his methods, and he's obviously all about you can farm. And so so it was like, whoa, that kind of blew the doors off, and it's like, hey, let's try this. Like, there is a way. So
last week's episode started the same way. The gentleman was introduced to the Omnivore's Dilemma, and that started his whole journey. So very interesting. 2 weeks in a row.
It was completely pivotal.
So you started with your garden, but then on 2 acres in a housing addition, basically.
Well, it was
mixed. Some poultry?
Mixed residential. So I mean, we had there was trees and there was planters around the house that had concrete curbing. And there was grass that, we were laboring to mow, and it's like, we literally plowed up the front yard and planted pasture grass and started raising chickens. And, we did our version of the chicken tractor and the eggmobile on a small scale. Yeah, there was a plot of trees that kind of needed to be thinned. And so we got in there and cleared out the overgrowth, and that became the turkey shelter so that they could get out of the water. And yeah, it was great. It was really like an urban adventure, suburban adventure.
Right. And the thing that jumps out at me at first, you didn't have a HOA, I'm thinking.
Right. No, that's true. No, but we didn't. And we had animal rights, but we had to defend those animal rights. There's a lot of, there's the trend is to try to remove that sort of thing and try to dictate to people that, no, this is, we're moving away from that. But it was like, hey, these were animal rights. You have it in print that this is what we're zoned for. And so we stuck to them and made a go of it.
And then even if you have those animal rights, a lot of people want to come in and dictate how you do it.
Or complain and say you're not, you're causing problems. And it's, we had an amazing, robust pasture in the back area, and we had neighbors whose gardens weren't doing well, and they were trying to blame things on us. And it's like, how is it possible that the corn on our side of the fence is like going gangbusters, and our animal activity is somehow impacting your strawberries, that sort of thing.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
so you gotta learn how to get along and and harmonize. Yeah.
When you started, I think you mentioned you started with pasture poultry or chickens first.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that was because of the omnivore dilemma and Joel Salatin and the way he was doing stuff.
Yes. And it was really we knew that we didn't know that much and that we were going to try this out. And ultimately, it's very easy to get out of the chicken business. It's a low barrier to entry, and it's easy to say, you know what, this isn't for me. It was a nice, we gave it a try. We don't love it. We're done. So that's why we started with chickens.
What was the biggest surprise for you?
How delicious homemade, home-raised, pasture-raised chicken is.
It's just like the difference between garden vegetables versus store vegetables.
And maybe even more so. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like this is what wholesome that tastes like. This is what, and you hear the stories. It's really true, and that this is what meat used to taste like, and it's got texture and it holds up when you cook it, and it's just robust and it's hearty and nourishing. So that was
just on a tangent on that, Eileen.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up on a dairy, so we drank raw milk.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. We grew up on it. It wasn't until I went to college that I started having to drink store-bought milk.
Yeah.
And I have a degree in animal science. So I went through some fluid milk processing classes and stuff, and people would tell me there's no taste difference between them. I'm like, oh, yeah, there is.
Then you don't know.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because when you do it for yourself and you sort of, we entered it, and I think most people enter it out of a passion for change. And so there's, you kind of have to question, like, am I just kidding myself? Like, do I just want it to be different because I've got so much invested, not just in my time and now our front yard is full of chickens, but, passion. Am I just kidding myself? But then you turn around and you start to sell products, and you get people like we were in a community. We were in Lewiston, Idaho, and so there's plenty of agriculture around there. Folks who are not far removed from the land, and I mean, ladies who are like, they'd buy a chicken, they'd go home, they'd come back to the farmer's market the next week and go, I haven't tasted a chicken like this since I was a little girl, and like they remember it. So it's like, okay, well, I'm not pulling the wool over her eyes, and I'm not convincing her of anything. And she's coming back and saying, I remember chicken like this when I was a little kid. So it's nice to get that kind of validation that it truly is different. It's not just because I want it to be different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When you all got started with poultry, low barrier to exit.
Low barrier to entry.
Yeah. Did you find the market there and readily available?
To sell?
Yes.
Well, I would say yes, but that's twofold. I would say initially we also weren't charging enough. Like you kind of start out and go, these are my neighbors, But no, people, like we did a self-serve refrigerator for our eggs. And so it was just, on our system, come get your eggs and drop your money off. And we had to limit who we told because we would easily be shut out. Yes. And then the same thing with the chickens, it was like you get the word out to a few people and folks who know, and kind of there's kind of a community built around it, especially when it comes to finding people who maybe have food sensitivities. They're struggling to find food that doesn't set their system off, and it's work, right? Because You can't just go to the store and buy stuff. So there tends to be support networks or networks around that sort of thing. And so it was pretty quick that we'd meet one person and we would kind of get introduced to their friends and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How long did you all stay at that 2 acres producing?
I think we were.
Maybe sorry, Eileen.
Yeah.
Maybe a better question is, how did you expand on that 2 acres?
It's a great question. So I would say we were there for 2.5 to 3 years before, I would say 3 years before we were really like ready to launch and expand.
Oh, yeah.
But it wasn't a matter of like, it was a matter of we were looking for land before that, and we were destined to have a property and at least do the homestead experience on a larger scale, regardless of whether it was going to be a business or not. And so that was kind of in the works. So it wasn't so much that, all right, we're gonna build this small business and the business is going to be the thing that launches us onto a new piece of property. That's not a realistic expectation, nor is that how it happened. It was really a planned, like, this is in part retirement, in part long-term goals and things like that. So, but it was, it was 2 years before of experience that said, hey, we can do this on a larger scale. Like this is something that it's a good fit. We're able to do the processing and the butchering ourselves. No one's getting scared off of that or turned off by it. And let's bring the small operation to the next chapter.
When you were still there on the small acreage and you'd started the poultry, and you'd mentioned you added turkeys and stuff. Did you add turkeys at that time while you were still on the 2 acres? Did you expand beyond chickens at that time?
At that time, yes. So we, on that piece of property, I want to say at the height, I think we did about 300 meat chickens.
Oh, yes.
We would have had I think we had about 100 layers, less than 75 to 100 layers. Our first batch of turkeys there were 40. And then we had 5 lambs as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So we brought them on as young ones. 5 lambs, and I guess, and then we had, I remember we had our first lambing season there. So they went a year and were bred because we didn't breed them as lambs, and they produced lambs there that first year and were in their first year. And we definitely transitioned that flock of 5 ewes and their lambs onto the new property.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. This is good. This is making me remember like back the timeline and how it happened.
Well, it just shows that if you're dedicated and you're like, I'm going to do this, 2 acres is enough to do a lot.
A lot. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
as long as and I think I hear this a lot of times, people get small acreage and they immediately want to get large ruminants, cattle and stuff, but really starting with smaller poultry with your small ruminants, that gives you the ability to actually be more than just one animal and start getting something in motion.
Right. Absolutely. And the species diversity too, like with you got your chickens and your sheep are a great small acreage animal.
Oh, they
really are. And especially with the fertilizer and that sort of thing. And especially if you've got weeds. I mean, how many people are moving on to a property that needs rehabilitated? In our area of the country, there's knapweed, and sheep are just, they're just great for eradicating it and turning over pasture into just revitalizing, what's there in the seed bank that's, already baked in the soil. Yeah.
I'm going to make an assumption, Eileen. I assume those first sheep you got were wool sheep.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were Romney sheep, and we still have Romney sheep. We adore them. And their fiber is wonderful, and it's great for hand spinners. But they're also a really docile breed. They're really cute, and they're very hardy. So they're dual purpose. So they're hardy for the weather, but they're also hardy because their hooves are very resistant to hoof rot. So if you're in a wet area, they're Romney because they originated in the Romney Marsh of England, where it was wet and boggy, and so they were adapted to that wet environment, and so the foot rot doesn't plague them as much as it can in other breeds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's good to know. I didn't realize that about Romney. to be honest, I'm not super familiar with wool breeds
Mm-hmm.
outside of what gets shown at the county fair. I see them around.
Well, the other cool thing about sheep is that, they've been domesticated for so dang long and so adapted to the specific region where they've come from that they're kind of like a niche animal that if you've got a purpose, there's a sheep out there that will fit that purpose.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of what's cool about them. One of the many things.
Yes. So before we went on a little bit of tangent about the sheep, you all moved to your bigger property. What was that move like? What did you jump in? I mean, you get to the property, it's not ready for you.
Yeah,
you're ready for it.
That's right. That's right. And so it was strategic. So that's a really great question. So for example, it was kind of like by species. And so, and like most, I would say probably like most people who get into this adventure, you dabble in it and then you fall in love with it and then you want to do everything and then you probably overdo it a little. And
right,
so,
yes.
and you find out, you grow and find out what that boundary is. And then hopefully you have the sense to go kind of rein it back in a little bit and come back to a more sustainable level. So for us, it was easy to go, okay, we're going to start. I want to say, I think we probably did 75 turkeys the next year. Like we did 40 the first go.
Oh, yeah.
It was successful. They're great. We love turkeys. Next year, okay, let's do 75. Well, the property's not going to support that. So we started them and then we just we started them at the original property, had the larger property in development. And it was like, okay, well, we can start with a turkey pen and do an aerial closure because we're out in, we're near a river. So aerial predators are as big of a threat as coyotes. Yes. And so, we created a paddock for them that we were able to rotate. I say a paddock. I mean, it was kind of large in the orchard. And so an area that we could rotate them through. So it was kind of a species at a time. And it's like, okay, how can we make the turkeys self-sufficient as much as possible so that they need as little babysitting and start there. And then, that once they're up and running, okay, that still allows people to be here to build fence for like the next generation of animals, which would have been cattle or, make sure we have the field fencing we need for sheep and like that. Yeah. And so it was kind of a seasonal and by protein / species that we did the improvements.
As you're expanding, were those additional species you added because you thought, oh, I want to do this other species, or did you have some customer drive there?
It was because we wanted to do them initially,
right?
And it was it was a small cow-calf herd, and in part. It was also thinking about a business plan that was, we're out in the West and it's a long way to a population base. And if we're going to be doing farmers markets and that sort of thing, we've got to be able to make every road mile count. And rather than show up at a farmer's market only selling chicken, it was like, well, at some point we're going to have beef. Let's do beef. How about pigs? And so that was in part because we wanted it for ourselves, but also like thinking down the road, we're going to want to do this for business purposes too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When along your journey did you kind of make that shift from just doing the homestead to this is going to be a business?
Yeah. And so the year was 2013. And that was after we acquired this property in 2008. And from there there was not a complete fence on the property. Like if you put an animal on the property, it was free range, open range. And so we had to, there was a standing barn, but it needed a roof and et cetera. And the place had been overgrazed, so it wouldn't necessarily support that rate of animal stocking rate. And so, so that was 2008. We just started building as far as like the orchard we put in early because you got to start with those trees early on. And then it was just start to build fences. And so I think our cow-calf herd arrived, I want to say 2010.
Oh yeah.
And yep. Yeah. And then we were, and only one of us, we kind of transitioned as far as who was living here full time. So Stan started here initially, and he was the one really pushing a lot of the building and the infrastructure improvements. And then I moved here in 2012 and came a full season before. It was like, well, we're going to start back. Like we need to start hitting markets. Otherwise our freezer's going to be overfull. Like this is where the rubber starts to hit the road. We need to make a plan and really make some sales start to happen. And so that's when we really started focusing on the selling side of the business.
Were you all at the time when you started doing the farmers markets, were you all still processing all your own poultry at the time?
Yes.
And just for a lay of land, I know you're in Northeast Washington. How far are you traveling to your farmers market? And how big a century or how big a city is that?
Yeah, so we have local smaller markets, but we're really targeting. We wanted to go to a farmers market with a broader base, and so we go to Spokane, we go to Coeur d'Alene, and we had also gone to Sandpoint when we first started because it's a great community, and they're all pretty well equidistant from the ranch, which is about 70 to 80 miles. One way? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And did the farmers markets work out well? Did they work as you thought they would? Was there some gotchas in there?
I think the gotcha is that we were listening. We had our ears open to the advice of others, which is that farmers markets are not typically going to float your ranch. They're not going to necessarily support your ranch with the sales that you need, but they're a great start. They're a great way to learn about marketing, learn who your customer is, get that relationship, get that feedback going. They've also got to be kind of multi-tiered as far as you go to the farmer's market and you've got the products that you sell at that market, which is great. And it would be ideal if that could be the end of it, but like I say, it's not going to, what we found is it's not going to support you full time unless you're closer to a larger city. So you've also got to be collecting emails and building an email list so that you can reach those customers year round or reach those customers when they're not coming to the farmer's market weekly, so that you can do a delivery route or, you can develop some other sort of fulfillment chain. And then there's also the art of getting pre-orders, which is, hopefully you're coming to the market with some guaranteed sales that you can just hand across the desk and go, hey, we're bringing product that we know is pre-sold. The customer's already placed the order. They're going to show up. They're going to take the order and go home. And that's not, it's not speculative sales. So.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So there's a few things in there I'd like to unpack a little bit.
Sure.
But the first thing I want to talk about is that capture of emails. So that you have a list. And all I really want to say right now, I'm very impressed with it because I went to your website earlier, looking over it, and you have a virtual tour of your ranch. So I clicked on it. Well, for me to watch it, I had to put my email address in. You're giving something of value to someone, and it's a little bit of a, I don't know, I hate to call it a pain point because it's not really a pain point. It was really simple, but I just thought that was a great way to capture an email address of someone visiting your site. And then the follow-up was I got an email and it included a link to that video. And you mentioned, hey, share it with your friends. I just thought that was very well done. So whoever was responsible, I was impressed with the workflow and how it captured my email because I don't like putting my email out there. I mean, I do everywhere it seems, but I try to not just do it. And I thought that was a really nice way that you did that.
Yeah, nice. Well, I'm glad you say so. And I think it's important for farmers, especially who are selling their products, to understand that what you're doing is of value, and it's not a big ask. If someone's genuinely interested in your farm, they'll give you their email.
Right.
If you're giving them value. So, hey, see how our animals are raised. It's a virtual tour. We'd love to have you come here personally, but for now, here's a quick video. And of course, if they don't want to give you your email, they can go to YouTube or whatever. There's lots of ways to see that video, but the intent is there. Like, hey, I'm curious enough. I'll give you my email and you'll give me a nice video experience. Cool.
Right. Yeah. If you want to get around it, you could, but it was painless to go through and do. And like you said, in the video, at the end, you all invite them out to your
Yeah.
farm, which I think is so important. And I'll be honest, that's not something I do a good job of. So I really like that.
Nice.
I'm just unpacking a little bit there, talking about that farmer's market journey, and it's not quite enough. And you talked about building routes and making sure you had pre-orders ahead of time, which the pre-orders I hadn't even thought about. That's a great thing. But on the routes, are you all running a route now to
We are.
deliver meats?
Yes, we do. It's a once a month delivery route. And
okay.
It's one loop. And what it does is it connects our farmers markets essentially so that we can continue to serve those customers in the wintertime. Our markets here are seasonal. So typically May through October. And that way we can still service them before Thanksgiving, before Christmas, and then through the winter months until it's the summer market season again.
Oh, very good. And on those routes, do you have like a drop-off point? You'll be in this town at so-and-so time, come here.
Yes. And so it's for many people, it's an inconvenience. It's because it's hey, you got to meet us at this time. It's brief window. We need you to be here. We're only there for so long. But, I think that also means our customer base is they're really dedicated. They're committed. If they can't make it, they'll send, a friend or something like that. But we've definitely tried to communicate that this is how we operate. If you can join us, awesome. Here's how you can connect, and here's the schedule. And if you just explain that to people up front, they have the option to say yes or no. That works for me or that doesn't.
Right. Very good. Let's take a little bit and just talk about what species you have on the farm currently on Ramstead Ranch.
Yep.
And what you're doing right now. And we'd already alluded to some of it. We'll get there in a moment. But let's first start with just your species you're continuing to do.
So we've transitioned. We've reduced the number of species that we raise, and so we're currently grass finishing beef, and we're pasture finishing pork. And so we do still have our sheep because we love them, and we cannot be without our adorable fiber sheep. But what we've done is partner with folks who are pasture raising chicken and pasture raising turkeys to do that portion of the meat raising.
Okay. So now you're not doing the poultry yourself or turkeys yourself, but you're partnering with people with the same principles, ideas as you to provide that meat product for your customers.
Right. It was not long. I mean, I would say it was probably 2019. And 2019 that we really started to evaluate, hey, if we're going to continue to do this and grow our business to a scale that's comfortable, where we can hire people to support the work that has to be done, we can't continue to do everything ourselves because we're spread too thin. And what you don't realize when you're getting excited and you're building your multi-species operation is that you don't have just one business. You have many, you have a beef business. And if you have a cow-calf business and a finishing business, you have that's two businesses.
Yeah, those are two different. Yeah.
Yeah. And so multiply that by every species. Now you've got a 10-tiered business, not to mention your marketing business, which is, that's a heavy thing. It takes a lot, and in the beginning, it was easy to find those neighbors that were interested, but when you're reaching into a larger city, you really have to do some legwork and build your customer base. It's not a matter of if you build it, they will come. Like it's hard, and I think people, I sure did. We underestimated how much time it can take and the dedication it takes. And it's not just, I would say most farmers and ranchers they're tough. They're dang tough people. And we're used to grunting it out and doing the work until it's done. But the work of marketing is never done, and you have to do it with a smile, and you have to be creative. And you have to be nice to people, even when you're dehydrated, and when there's, if there's animals out, or if someone couldn't show up today because they're sick, and it doesn't matter that you're not feeling well, you got to go do it. So anyway, I think we've all lived that on some level, and so so it was really a matter of like, okay, we've got to simplify what we're saying yes to, reduce the number of things we're saying yes to, and focus on what we do well, what we do really well, and partner with other people. And And what's cool about that is, and initially you kind of feel like you're leaving some things on the table, like, but I love raising chickens. I love that we're pulling the tractors around the pasture. But you do that, and now you're supporting another rancher, another farmer who's covering more acreage with regenerative agriculture. And it's like, that's when you look at it through that lens, that's a real win. And we can do more together. So it becomes a network instead of, a solo effort.
Yeah, and I think that's excellent. And maybe that's their strength. And maybe marketing's not their strength or whatever. Yeah. It really can be a really valuable relationship to both of you.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So with your beef cattle and your grass-fed beef, was there a learning curve for you to get that grass-fed beef to finish well on grass and be able to provide a quality product?
Yeah, I feel like we kind of started at the top of the food chain with advice and information, though, because we early on it was like, hey, we don't know this business. We're not born into it. It's not like we have to take the herd, dad's herd, and use these animals in order to transition into this grass finishing program. Right. It was like, we want to do grass finished beef. Therefore, we're going to go out and source the best animals we can to make the best product we can. And so we learned early on, you want efficient animals, you want short animals. You can't just go to the sale barn and buy what's coming through that day. You got to get, the guys that have the big barrel bellies that can fill that with grass and gain weight, with ease. And so that was our goal initially. And anytime, and we were taste testing products as we could, it was like, hey, we're interested in a delicious steak. And, so what if we were going to buy animals, hey, do you have some steaks we can try out and see what that product is like? So going slowly and kind of doing the research up front it pays off. It's not, it's worth it. It's worth asking a lot of questions and trying things out before you jump into it.
So as you're looking for those grass-fed type of animals, did you settle on a breed, or what did you come to on that?
I like to say, it's not about the breed. It's really about the phenotype. So is it a short, squatty animal? I think there are some breeds we tend to steer clear of because they can't traditionally finish well in our region because they're so hardy, I mean, we tried Highlanders at one time, and it was like they just weren't able to finish in marble as well for us on our pastures. But they're absolutely great animals, 100% wonderful for homesteading, and we loved them. But it was like when it just came down to like the eating experience, there are some breeds that we avoid. And typically around in our area, there's always, everybody's got a little bit of Angus in their herd, but there's Charolais that are fabulous too, and things like that. So it's more about the phenotype and knowing the rancher, where they come from, like have those animals lived low stress? Have they been on the gain throughout their lives? Because I think that's a big part of what kind of gives grass finished beef a bad name sometimes, is that people are selling grass fed beef, but it's not really properly finished and well fattened. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think that consistency of product is a industry problem that we have to address.
Yeah. And, it's especially as the consumer base grows and more people are converting from what they get in the store, which may not be as high a quality, but it's dang consistent. People are used to super consistent. We as small farmers and ranchers do have to kind of level up and go, hey, there's some expectation here that is fair. It's fair to want, hey, I had a good steak yesterday, I want a good steak tomorrow too.
Right. Yeah. We know what that burger is going to taste like from McDonald's.
Yeah, it's the same every time.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
So in addition to the cows, you mentioned you all have added pigs. When in your journey did you decide to add pigs to it?
I would say pigs were probably I would say they were the last animal that came here to the ranch, probably because probably because they were, no other reason than everything else was just a little more favorite on the favorites list.
Yeah.
It wasn't long after the cattle got here that our first small herd of pigs came.
And what what breed are you using for your pigs?
On pigs, we do raise Berkshire pigs. And again, that was it was not only flavor, but it was also about animals that are a heritage breed that are going to do well in pasture.
Oh, yeah.
And these guys do awesome. And the meat the flavor is just amazing. Yeah.
Were you able to source your original stock locally, or do you have to go very far?
We were able to go to source locally. It's pretty easy to find small breeders. It gets harder as you get bigger and need more pigs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you all ferrying out your own sows or just bringing in feeders?
No, we've just been bringing in feeders for the last, I would say, since 2021 was our last batch of where we were truly farrowing ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And here and there we'll have a herd, or a batch, but it's not part of the business plan. It's just for novelty.
Why did you make that change, moving over to feeders rather than?
Yeah, again, it was just to simplify, and so it was just to reduce. Again, if you've got feeder pigs, that's one business. If you got a farrowing operation, that's a second business.
Right. Yeah.
And also we learned not quickly, but we learned that it was year round. The demands are year round, and we have a proper winter here, and so it was like, well, if we're going to give ourselves a break, if we're going to make a little slack in the system, let's reduce the demand on our winter time tasks. And so that's, yeah.
Going through this, you all have expanded from just the three of you into a team that you're having to manage. And actually, for our overgrazing section sponsored by Redmond, at Redmond, we know that you thrive when your animals do. That's why it's essential to fill the gaps in your herd's nutrition with the minerals that they need. Made by nature, our ancient mineral salt and conditioner clay are the catalyst in optimizing the nutrients your animals get from their forage. Unaltered and unrefined, our minerals have the natural balance and proportion that your animals prefer. This gives your herd the ability to naturally regulate their mineral consumption as they graze. Our minerals won't just help you improve the health of your animals, but will also help you naturally build soil fertility so you can grow more nutrient-dense pasture year after year. Nourish your animals, your soil, and your life with Redmond. Learn more at redmondagriculture.com. We're going to take a deeper dive into that team management and team dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about your team you have there and how you manage them and how it works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have, the total number of employees will fluctuate throughout the year. We're higher in the summertime. So we're as few as 8, we're as many as 12 to 15.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so it's really a function. What we've tried to do is really create a team where there's not the hierarchy of top-down control, but more spreading things out and giving people the information that they need to do the jobs that they're responsible for, and the autonomy to do them well, And so it's because there are so many moving parts on a farmer ranch, and especially when you mix in the sales, it's hard, even when you add employees and get the help you need, to not be. It's easy to create the situation where everyone's coming to you for the answers. And if that's the case, you really haven't built a team that is self-supporting and autonomous that can do the work without you. They're just dependent on you. And so it's been a real journey to okay, we got to create the system so that everyone can thrive and own their own position, really.
Mm-hmm. So how did you do that? Because I see a lot of things where it's very much, well, I'll just use a local example. For me, my dad, when he comes down here, he expects us all to ask him what to do.
Yeah.
Now, I say that a little bit in jest because he lets me do whatever I want. But we do have some people helping us And yeah, dad's very much the person that's in charge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's two-part. It's creating a system using tools that anybody can pick up and quickly learn and get the basics so that they've got a template for this is a job I'm supposed to do and this is what's expected. And that's a system of SOP, standard operating procedures, which can look kind of like a checklist or a simplified bullet point of if you're rotating cows around the pasture, here's your steps. Here's what you gotta do. Here's what you gotta watch for, and here's what you gotta make sure happens before you're done. And then it's also a system of teamwork that is like coming together and going, hey, what are the problems? What are the barriers that we're facing today? What's our common goal as a team to grow into the future? So, and for that method, we've actually looked at other industries and modeled what they do. There's a couple of methods. One's called Agile or the Scrum method, where you come together as a team to solve problems or to accomplish goals, and everybody is a part of that. So everybody has the information, everybody has the opportunity to contribute or, kind of punch holes if it's a problem. Hey, brainstorm together, or hey, I've got an idea. And you never, it's surprising when you pull everybody together and ask open questions and make things transparent. It's amazing the skill sets you'll find in people that are on your team that you didn't realize they had. If you maybe you hired them to come do farmers market sales for you, but it turns out they actually are a spreadsheet wizard and they can run Excel, really easily. So, hey, okay, cool. Well, here's some other, maybe you could take this on and handle creating a spreadsheet or some kind of calculating tool that we need to better manage cattle rotation or whatever. So it's really a matter of being more transparent, sharing information with team members so that they can help and that they can understand, the problems that the business is facing, that everyone can remove impediments together and therefore more efficiently accomplish goals.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you all plan meetings every so often? Are they regularly scheduled?
Very regular.
What I'm trying to say.
Yeah. The meetings are it's imperative, and that's again to just in order to keep the meetings short, they're often. And so we do a daily stand-up 15-minute meeting where it's hey, what am I doing today? What are the impediments I'm facing? And that's it. What did I do? What did I accomplish yesterday? And so that's what those they're quick, and it's everybody's sharing the information. So and it helps keep everybody in touch with what the other folks are doing. Basically, what we're trying to do is break down a silo system, the old school way of doing things, where hey, maybe marketing's over here working on one thing, and the folks who are rotating cattle are working over there in the field, and they don't necessarily know what each other's facing, what you're contributing to the ranch that day. Maybe they should be working together. Like, hey, let me know your schedule so that I can come take video of you moving the cattle or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So it just really simplifies and saves time. That way we're not all having to text each other independently and chase each other down and stuff like that. It's just, we know the meeting's going to happen. And if we need to exchange information, that's a good place to do it. Yeah. So that's the regular daily thing. And then we have a once a week meeting where we basically kind of group together and talk about what our goals are for the week or the 2 weeks ahead. And then we also look back and go, hey, how did we meet our goal from the last week or the last 2 weeks? And how did that go? So we're constantly trying to kind of evaluate how we've done things, how the system's working, and how efficiently everyone's feeling the process is running.
I think that reflection piece is so important. And, I think oftentimes we all do it. We all reflect upon what we've done, but sometimes that's where it stops. We've got to take that next step and what did we learn from it? And we got to implement that in our future things. So I just think that reflection is so important.
Absolutely. It's kind of like letting the pasture rest. That's
it
really
is a good analogy. Yeah.
That's really calm down, let things simmer, let things soak. let things regrow. And when we regrow, we'll be better next time. We'll be healthier next time. We'll think, what have we learned from our last experience that we can take forward and, and make things easier and more fun. And that's the idea, is that our jobs should be light and lean and not a burden. And if they are, then what can we do to simplify so that we can all enjoy working together and doing more of what we love?
Right, because if you're enjoying it, it's just going to be so much better.
And you're going to do a better job. You're going to do a better job.
Yeah.
You're going to be more inviting and welcoming when the customers show up. Yeah, it's good for everybody. And the animals shouldn't be the only one living a low stress lifestyle.
Right. That work-life balance, and I hate to use the word balance because it's never in balance, but that ebb and flow of work life and home life should be there so that it's not a burden all the time.
Yeah.
As we look towards the future, where do you see Ramstead Ranch going? Are there any changes you all want to do? Is there anything on the horizon you think that's what we should be or where we should be?
Well, I would say that we're in a good place as far as our enterprise mix, that we're grazing. We do have a need to bring more species back to the land and graze more. Since we have started partnering, we miss having the chicken schmear on fertilizer on the ground. So there's some of that's like, hey, now because we've improved the quality of our pastures, we have excess grass that we're not grazing. Maybe we can start to bring in, some goats to do some prescribed grazing here and there, or to really break down, some of the underbrush in some areas that still needs help, still needs improvement, and get some more grazers and more hoof action on the land. And that doesn't necessarily have to be for the end result of having it be, a meat product in the end. Like the thing about building the meat business has been, you've got to do it quality. If you're selling to customers, you've got to follow up with customer service. You've got to build a team. We've been really careful to make that successful and a good working business. And it's kind of time to pivot back and maybe start to bring in some more of the regenerative ag piece, just for the sole purpose of the land and having that regeneration happen in the areas that it hasn't been easy to do with finishing animals. Because if you're finishing beef, you don't want to put them to work in the areas that aren't as rich with quality grass.
Right. Yeah. You don't want them on rougher ground that's not quite ready. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's, maybe like kind of the next generation of the grazing and the animals that we'll have here.
Do you find you offer a wide variety of products at your store? Do you find your customers are asking for anything you all don't provide at this time?
Yes, I think that's always going to be the case, too, is, as I said, goat as grazers, but we don't offer goat meat. And there's always, sort of the game hens or the I would say more novelty animals. And so, and it's sometimes it feels a little hard to say no sometimes, but that's just not something that we can realistically offer and don't plan to.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Milk is another one, Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
Milk, listeners of the podcast will know I have this ongoing dilemma, and I feel like I tell everyone this, but, I'm dying to have a milk cow or a few milk goats, but then I grew up on a dairy, so I know that's scheduling me quite busy for quite a while. So I'm not 100%. Quite there yet, but at the same time.
Yeah. And I think it's just as much about, hey, when customers find you and they're doing what you're doing, the work that they love, it's like, hey, what else is it? Can I, can I get? And so, there's always one more thing. And it's like, we don't offer that.
Well, it's kind of like juggling.
Yeah.
You juggle 3 balls. What does the audience want? They want you to add a 4th ball.
A flaming one.
Yeah. And you start doing 4 balls. Then what does the audience want? They want you to add another one. So you've got to know yourself and not get yourself into a problem there.
100. That's a really good analogy.
Eileen, it is time for us to move on to our famous 4 questions, sponsored
Awesome.
by Ken Cove Farm Fence. Ken Cove Farm Fence is a proud supporter of the Grazing Grass podcast and grazers everywhere. At Ken Cove Farm Fence, they believe there's true value within the community of grazers and land stewards. The results that follow proper management and monitoring can change the very world around us. That's why Ken Cove is dedicated to providing an ever-expanding line of grazing products to make your chores easier and your land more abundant. Whether you're growing your own food on the homestead or grazing on thousands of acres, Ken Cove has everything you need to do it well. From reels to tumblewheels, polytwine to electric nets, water valves to water troughs, you'll find what you're looking for at Ken Cove. They carry brands like Speedrite, O'Brien's, Kiwi Tech, Strainrite, Job, and more. Ken Cove is proud to be part of your regenerative journey. Call them today or visit kencove.com, and be sure to follow them on social media and subscribe to the Ken Cove YouTube channel at Ken Cove Farm Fence for helpful how-to videos and new product releases. There's same 4 questions we ask of all of our guests.
Yep.
And our first question, what is your favorite grazing grass related book or resource?
Yeah, it is. So I love the book, The Hidden Half of Nature. That's by David Montgomery and his wife, Bickley. And it's a really great read. I love it because it is like the whole story of the health of the soil, the grazing of the animals, and how they're, especially ruminants, are adapted to eat grass, and how we transition away from that with our industrial agriculture, and what impact that has had on our food and therefore our bodies. And so it is magical. It's a great book.
Oh, very interesting. I have not heard of that book, so I will have to look it up.
They together have a series. I think they call it the Dirt Trilogy. I think that's what kind of they lovingly call it. But there's another book they wrote called Dirt, and then another one that is I think what your food ate is the other title.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
They're all awesome books. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look those up.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that resource.
Well,
I'm always excited. I'm always excited just to hear what people find that's been beneficial to their journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a selfish way, I'm always excited when there's a new book that I haven't heard of.
For sure.
Now, if you look behind me, I have a few books here. And as I was talking to Farmer Angus the other day, I haven't read them all yet. So I have plenty of reading to do.
Oh, it's never ending, which is great, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I did see a meme earlier that I really liked. It shows 2 guys standing against a cement block fence. And one guy can't see over it. And the other guy can see over it only because he's standing on all the books he's read. And I thought
that's good.
I really like that. In fact, I don't think I saved it to my phone. I kind of wish I would have, because I kind of like that analogy there. You know, you're standing on that knowledge. You can gain so much from reading.
So much. Yeah, that's great.
For our second question, what is your favorite tool for the farm?
Okay, I had to think long and hard about this one. And it's actually, this may be cheating, but it's called the trucker's hitch. And it's not a tool, it's a knot that you can make with a rope.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's like, I think when we have interns or new employees that are out in the production division of outdoors at the ranch, it's a knot I like to teach them, because it's the best way. It's basically, it creates a pulley so that you can tie things down tightly or lift things that are heavy. Or if you're headed to a farmer's market and you've brought ropes instead of ratchet straps, it's basically like a homemade ratchet strap. Yeah.
Well, okay. 2 for 2, because I do not know how to tie a trucker's hitch. So I am going to have to look that up as well.
Yeah, it really is. It's just like that. It's a ratchet strap in your brain. As long as you have a rope, you can make a trucker's hitch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. And I don't know that everybody calls it. That's how I learned the name of it. It's basically a slip knot on one side, and you loop through and make a pulley so that you can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you've got a mechanical advantage.
Yeah. Oh, very good.
Yeah.
And I will have to say, I believe that's the first time we've used some kind of knot as our favorite tool.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. All my other ones were kind of dumb. Yeah.
So it's never dumb if it's useful for you.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. Our third
Yeah.
question, Eileen, is what would you tell someone just getting started?
Yeah. Keep asking why. Just keep asking why. There's a lot of it. There's just so much advice, and it's like there's good advice and there's bad advice, and they can sound the exact same coming out of someone's mouth. And so,
right.
Yeah. And so it's really understanding where the person's coming from and the reason for what they're saying or what they're telling you. And you just really have to keep evaluating your sources so that so much about learning and education and information is about come from. And so the only way you're going to get to that is to be like a little kid, keep the curiosity high, and keep asking why. Yeah.
Eileen, as I looked over your website and as we've had this conversation, I've already jotted down a title to the episode. But now I'm questioning that because I'm thinking, I really like that. Keep asking why.
Yeah.
That's really good advice, I think.
Yeah. And it kind of goes to saying, like, we talk a lot about like what works in your zip code. And especially with regenerative grazing, because it's really it's really the principles. It's not the methods. If you can learn the principles, you can apply them in those different zip codes. But if you ask someone their methods, they're going to give you a specific answer. Here's what I do. Yeah. Here's what you should do. Maybe they say, here's what you should do. And and don't do that. It'll never work. Well, if you ask why, it's probably has something to do with that zip code. And there's probably a very good reason that they're giving you that advice, but it may be it may need to be a completely different answer in a different zip code.
Right, that could be completely valid
Yeah.
in their context.
Yeah, they're not wrong. They're right.
It's not going to work in your context.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And lastly, Eileen, where can others find out more about you?
Yeah, so we're online at ramsteadranch.com. That's our website. And if you're on any of the kind of major social media platforms, we're Ramstead Ranch. So if it's Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, that kind of thing.
Excellent job on coming up with a name that's going to be unique enough that it's going to be available everywhere.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and it's not a last name. It was just a word we made up. It was like Homestead, but especially with our love of the sheep, it was Ramstead.
Oh, yeah.
The place of the ram. So, yeah.
Well, very good, Eileen. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us today.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I really appreciate what you're doing for the regenerative agriculture community and for grazers out there and new and experienced. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. I really hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I know I did. Thank you for listening. And if you found something useful, please share it. Share it on your social media. Tell your friends. Get the word out about the podcast. Helps us grow. If you happen to be a grass farmer and you'd like to share about your journey, go to grazinggrass.com and click on Be Our Guest. Fill out the form and I'll be in touch. We appreciate your support by sharing our episodes and telling your friends about it. You can also support our show by buying our merch. We get a little bit back from that. Another way to support the show is by becoming a Grazing Grass Insider. Grazing Grass Insiders enjoy bonus content, monthly Zooms, and discounts. You can visit the website, grazinggrass.com, click on support, and they'll have the links there. Also, if you haven't left us a review, please do. It really helps us as people are searching for podcasts. And I was just checking them, and we do not have very many reviews for 2024. So if you haven't left us a review, please do. And until next time, keep on grazing grass.